share my testimony. Several years ago, I had a dream where I was walking down the street. It was a very beautiful summer day, and all of a sudden I started to see people ascend into heaven. Me being a Christian over 20-something years, I knew immediately that this was the rapture, so I started to get myself right and get myself ready to ascend. Well, I found myself on what seemed like an escalator going down, descending into hell, which I thought to myself, this can't be good, this can't be right. I'm a Christian, I haven't done things perfectly, but I'm a Christian and I don't need to be on here. So in this dream, on either side of the escalators were two big angels, and I asked them, I said, hey, how do I get off of this thing? I'm not supposed to be on this, going to hell. In which they replied, if you're on this escalator going to hell, you have to stay on it. I felt so desperate. I felt like this is it. This is for eternity. I can feel the heat in this dream from the flames in hell. I can hear the hopelessness in the cries of the people. And I can remember I hadn't done things exactly the way that I was supposed to do, and now I was going to regret it forever. But right when I got to the bottom of the escalator, I heard a voice that says, we're giving you another chance. And I immediately woke up. I woke up so violently that I woke my wife up. She said, what's wrong? Is everything okay? I told her, I have something to do. I have to get right. And it's been 6 years since then. No drinking, nothing to drink. Praise God. And just living a Holy Ghost filled life. Enjoying my God, my family, my children. If he can do it for me, he can certainly do it for you. Revelation says in chapter 12, verse 11, for they overcame the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. So I pray that this testimony will help someone out there. Be blessed.
Praise the Lord. I greet you in Jesus' name. I'm Pastor Henderson, pastor of Bethel Methodist Episcopal Church, located in Evanston, Illinois. We're excited about our two-night Men's Empowerment Night, and tonight starts the first night. We pray that you enjoy and be blessed by what you receive. God bless you, God keep you.
Praise God. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. I want to thank each of you for joining us for this two-night event. I truly thank my pastor for giving us the vision to have an empowerment settings where we can express Black concerns. I want to thank all the leadership and the participants for sacrificing time to be with us. It is my hope that there will be some enlightenment or some type of inspiration going forward that would give us thought-provoking ideas in how we live our life in America going forward. So with that, I pray that you enjoy these next few hours.
Good afternoon, everybody. We thank you for joining us for our first phase of our Men's Empowerment weekend. We want to start off with obviously our roundtable, and I want to introduce you to our moderators and panelists. I am Michael Henderson, the first gentleman of Bethel AME Church. I also want to introduce my cohort, Brother Ricky Hilliard, who is the other moderator. And then let me introduce you to the folks around the ring here. We have Joel Cole, who one of our younger members here. We have Brother Sam Harris. We also have Brother Jordan Henderson, and we have Brother Jason Nemo. So those will make up the panelists that we will be interviewing tonight. So we want to start off, we're going to visit three areas tonight. One is the COVID-19, the other one is going to be Black Lives Matter, and the third one is about Jesus. And so with that in mind, I'm going to open up and really just go quickly around the room and ask you just a simple question. And that is, actually it's not a simple question, I take that back. When we think about the COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus, my question for you, and I'll start out with you, Joel, since you're a grade schooler or middle schooler there, and how has it affected you, right? And are there things that you would like to have done differently or would like to do differently since this has happened?
It has affected me badly because I can't see my friends or my teachers. I can't go to school. I have to wear a mask, gloves, and stay 6 feet apart away from each other.
Okay. Sam, how's it done for you? Same question.
I'd say it's like affected me, like kind of evenly. I wouldn't say it's been like bad, but it's like so for like social people who are like very like socially awkward. I'd say it's bad because like you need to communicate with other people, and so they were already like if you're socially awkward, you're like already experiencing a lack of like social companionship with other people. So it's just kind of added to that problem. But I'd say like on the education like side of things, it's a lot harder for people who need to see things in order to learn instead of like just figuring it out on your own, because obviously like you have Zoom and stuff, but it's better atmosphere for certain people to be in a classroom. So.
Okay. Mr. Jordan, you're a working man, so how has it affected you, and are there things that you now have to do differently?
Yes, the biggest effect has been working remotely. That was an option for me even before the whole pandemic started, but now it's exclusively working from home. So that definitely affects motivation, making sure you're not laying down and on the laptop, because otherwise you're gonna go to sleep. So just motivations, and then just to piggyback off of what Sam was talking about, we are social creatures as humans, and so it's kind of affecting connections with people. You have to work a little bit harder to maintain those connections. Thankfully, we live in an era with social media, so we're able to connect in that way, even if we aren't able to connect in person.
Okay. And Brother Jason, so you're in a unique position in the fact that you're a working professional and at the same time you're a parent.
Yes.
So you've got it at a couple of ends here. So let's ask you, how has it affected you, and are there things that you now have to do differently?
Yes, it's definitely affected me in a lot of different ways. Mainly it's just working from home. I work downtown in the Loop area, so I miss going downtown Chicago. I miss having a commute. I know a lot of people hate it, but I love getting out of my house. I walk to work, so I miss my walk to the bus to take her to the train to go downtown. I miss the hustle and bustle of downtown Chicago. But I am blessed that I do have a job. I can work remotely, but unfortunately, working from home is tough. As you mentioned, I am a parent, and my wife does have a job as well. Luckily, she's a teacher, so she doesn't work during the summers. But it's very hard to try to work and deal with doctor's needs while you have your daughter or my son who's asked for something, he has a need. Being a parent always usually comes first. So it's just it's tough to definitely juggle both of those things at the same time, because one thing I love about going downtown, I get a chance to get away from my life as a parent. I can just focus on work. There is no more just focus on work. It is, if my son wants to come, hey dad, hit me some ground balls, you practice for baseball, it's hard for me to say no to that, because I want to hang out with him and do things for him, but I also have a meeting at 2 o'clock and I got other things I have to do. So it's a double-edged sword. I get to spend more time with my kids, but now it's hard to focus on work as much as possible. So it's been a struggle, definitely been a struggle, but we just got to hang in, I guess. Okay.
Well, let me ask this one as a follow-up on our subject about the COVID-19. Let's face it, the coronavirus at its root is a virus, right? Likewise, influenza at its root is a virus. But the people have been, and when you look at it, when you look at both of them, people have been hospitalized and also died because of both, right? So my question for you tonight is really one of, do you see a difference between the two? Number one. So do you see a difference between the corona and influenza? I'm not going to, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it the generic influenza. All right. Do you see a difference? Influenza, also known as the flu. So just to help out my friend Joel there, you know. And then also the fact that if we thought about that, what actions do you see or we all should be taking to protect ourselves against the virus? So I'm going to start actually with you, Sam.
I think there's actually like a really big difference in it because it's been described as like a much more extreme case of the flu. And on top of that, like when someone is sick, there's obviously like telltale signs, but with COVID, there's like, you could have it, not know it, and then be around other people and it spreads that way. So I'd say it's more something that we should care about because a lot of people aren't really taking it serious. Even during quarantine, you saw people like walking outside more instead of like staying in. So like I'd say like there is a very big difference. Obviously, it's still similar, sickness. I mean, there are obviously similarities, but I think that there is a very big difference and that we should take it a lot more serious than we do.
Okay. Hey, Joel, I'll repeat the question in terms of, you know, do you see a difference between the flu and the coronavirus?
Yes, because coronavirus is like more deadly and like you can actually get rid of the flu. Like
Okay.
there is not too hard, but it's not too easy to get rid of it.
Okay. What do you think we should be doing to protect ourselves?
We should be like wearing masks and stay 6 feet apart. Wear gloves if we need something.
Okay, so you're purely the CDC guy, right? All right. So Jordan, same kind of questions here. You know, do you see a difference there? And two, what do you think we should be doing?
I definitely see a difference. I think the biggest difference is in marketing and in coverage. You know, so about 2 or 3 years ago, when 80,000 people died in the United States alone from the flu, nobody heard about it. You might just be hearing about it for the first time. Me saying it right now. You know, so I think that the main difference is the hysteria, and I think in terms of answer your second question, what we should do is make sure that the hysteria doesn't become worse than the virus itself. You know, so while we do need to take precautions, make sure we're washing our hands, which I hope we were already doing anyway. You know, washing our hands for at least 20 seconds with warm water and soap, and you know, definitely wearing a mask and keeping your distance and just being safe, all around safe, making sure that we still remain in ourselves. Remember that we are covered by the Most High, and not let the hysteria consume us, because that's the main difference.
Okay. Jason, once again, you're in that unique position, right? In the fact that I don't know if, you know, being a parent, if your kids ever got the flu or not, but do you see a difference, A, and B, how do you feel we should be protecting ourselves?
Well, I also come from a place, I work in academic healthcare.
Okay.
So I work with doctors who do COVID-19 research. That's actually what I kind of do. And the main difference is, one, we just still don't know what this is. After talking with doctors on a daily basis, they don't know what this is, which is what makes it scary. Because, you know, like the flu, you know when someone's sick. You can tell when someone's sick. You can't really tell when someone's sick in medicines. And most of the time, you can't tell at all, which is what makes it very scary, because people can easily pass this along without knowing. With the flu, you kind of, you know, you have a fever, you know something's wrong with you. This, a lot of times, a lot of people don't know they have it, which is what makes it scary, which scares me. And as a parent, it makes me not want to send my kid, you know, I'm just like Joe, I follow, you know, obviously me working where I work at, I definitely follow guidelines. I do not want to send my kid back to school. I think even though my son loves sports, the only sport I feel safe with is baseball, because it's truly social distancing at its best. He will now play soccer or football like he usually does. So it definitely will affect how I handle being a parent to my kids, and I'm just, you know, I don't know what the future holds. I do agree with you, Jordan, that we shouldn't let this hysteria get the best of us, but we should also try to be patient as much as possible, until we really figure out what this is, because that's truly the unknown.
If you are swayed by the winds of the culture, they will blow negativity into your space. If the body is the temple, don't leave your windows open, but open up yourself to receive divine instruction. If you're counting 2020 as a loss, I'll ask that you search the scriptures and remember that the earth was created in 7 days, from atoms to Adam, from nothing to newness. God proved that he can create a masterpiece in minutes. If you are in a perpetual cycle of stagnation and being led by toxic practices, there is a remedy for this tragedy, and it's found in the place that you've been running from this whole time, in quarantine, the place of seclusion where you tune into the frequency of heavenly hosts. I encourage you to block out the noise, disable the destructive notifications, and stop eating from that news feed. Oh, taste and see that the Lord, he is good. Elohim is a delicacy, and he's here to nourish your need. He prepared a table in the presence of everything trying to stop you and tells you to eat and get your weight up, then gets your head right and supplies you with living water that overflows your cup. All he asks is that you dwell in quarantine. Yes, QGT. Quarantine gave us tests, trials, and tribulations. Quarantine got tense. Quarantine grew our tolerance. Quarantine got us together. Quarantine gave us the blueprint. Quarantine gifted us treasures in earthen vessels. Quarantine gave us talent. And contrary to popular belief, quarantine is blessing us beyond measure. Nothing, and I'm telling you, nothing could ever measure up.
Okay. Well, appreciate you all's insights on the COVID. So let's transition now to Black Lives Matter. That obviously has been in the news as well, right? And so let me first start off with kind of a softball one, and that is, if you look at the U.S. population, how many people do you believe, how many blacks or African Americans do you believe the populace is? So I'll start with you.
I think we're about 12, 13%.
Can
we say that?
Jordan?
Just what he said, 13%, about 40 some odd million Americans.
Okay. Sam?
I put it like in the same range as him. I'd say above 12, but below 20.
Okay. Joel?
13 or 14.
All right. Okay. I think it's somewhere around 13 to 14. You guys are all smarter than me, so anyway. All right, here's another one here relative to the Black Lives Matter. So my question for you tonight is, what do you hear that phrase, right? Black Lives Matter. So my question for you tonight is, what does it mean to you? So I'm going to start with you, Jordan.
Black Lives Matter to me means just that Black Lives Matter. I think that it was sparked from a sentiment that I think a lot of us have been feeling for a long time, that perhaps there might be some sort of a different treatment of us versus other ethnic groups within this nation really since this nation's inception. I think that it's sort of gone to a different place, not to get too deep into political theory or whatever, but there is an element of cultural Marxism that's in there as well. But overall, it's just that we should be treated the same, and I think that we should remember that includes treating our own the same. Sometimes we can be overly critical of ourselves. We don't really support black businesses like that. So I think as much as we're shouting that Black Lives Matter, let's make sure that we ourselves believe that Black Lives Matter.
Okay. Sam, what about you?
I'd say Black Lives Matter, when I hear the phrase, it automatically I kind of pictured the nation united, because I know not everyone who isn't black is racist. Not all white people are racist, not all Hispanics are racist, So when I picture it, I think of that being a phrase as let's come together. Not necessarily all Black Lives Matter, not necessarily all lives matter. I just think that we pinpoint probably, this is an argument for another day, but probably the most hated, tortured race ever. When we all come together and try to really build up what like we've lost in the past hundreds of years with disconnecting from each other. I think that just kind of like is just another word for unite.
Okay. Joel, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
It means black people should like have the same respect of white people, and they should stop getting killed.
All right. Any other thoughts there? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we get it all. All right, Jason, what about you?
It's a phrase, I love the phrase, I have a sign in my front yard, but at the same time, I hate the fact that it's 2020, I still have to say that phrase. I feel like after listening to my grandparents who were born in the South, my father was born in the South, and hearing the stories how they have to live their life, it's just kind of like, I just feel like when are things going to change? And it's hard to have, I'm all about it, of course, because I'm a black man. I just want white people, not all people, not just white people, but all other people to appreciate our life and respect our life just like they respect their own life. And I hate the fact I even have to say that first.
Okay. Well, let me bring my cohort Ricky Hilliard into this program here, and so I know he's got a few questions that he wants to ask you all.
So I sure do. I'm sure you all are all familiar with the National Football League, the NFL.
Yes.
So about 3 years ago, a black quarterback named Colin Kaepernick began taking a knee while the national anthem was being sung. Now, his reason for doing that was to bring attention to and to start a conversation about the unfair treatment of blacks in the United States of America. As a result, several things happened. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about a few aspects of that. The first one being President Trump sought to politicize the situation by claiming that Kaepernick and other people who followed in that path were kneeling during the national anthem, and that was a disrespect of the flag and the people of the armed forces. What's your opinion about Mr. Kaepernick and the others who kneeled during the national anthem? I'll start with you on that, Sam.
Okay. I don't think it's disrespectful at all. Me personally, I don't see anything wrong with him taking a knee during the national anthem. I mean, the national anthem is our whole, like, everyone knows it. It's our, you know what I'm saying? It's not the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's us, like, kind of showing our love for America when we sing it. So, I mean, like, it's like when you're taking a knee during it, it's kind of just showing, like, the fact that he knows, he's very aware that people are dying and fighting, like, for this country, and he's still taking a knee for it, like, kind of is what nobody wants to talk about. Like, that's kind of the real issue, the fact that, like, people know that people are dying for this country and are still willing to speak up and give up their position in the NFL, one of the most known sports in the world. Like, he kind of sacrificed his whole position, his whole, like, all his checks, the money, everything. He kind of, like, separated himself from everyone around him other than the other people who decided, you know, to take the knee as well. But I think it was a, like, grand show of selflessness in a way. Like, he's not worried about what, like, if he becomes unemployed, because he was unemployed. He was a free agent for a very long time. He wasn't signed to an NFL team. He kind of just sacrificed all that for the bigger picture. So I'd say it's not a sign of disrespect at all. Like, if anything, everyone should be taking a knee during the national anthem.
Mr. Nemo, what's your thoughts on Mr. Kaepernick and taking a knee?
When he first did it, I loved it. I honestly, the fact that it came out of nowhere, he explained why he was doing it, and he did it with his own heart. So I was all for it. I just hated the fact that a lot of other, I mean, there were definitely other NFL players who took a knee as well, but I felt like more could have done it, especially since the NFL is majority black. Majority of the players are black, so I would love to see more players do I love that he did it. I hated the fact that it became this political thing, because it's not. It has nothing to do with patriotism. He was trying to bring light to a problem that as black people been dealing with for hundreds of years. And once again, people took it and turned it into something else than what it really was, and which really, annoyed me about the whole situation. And he was very thoughtful and very concise in his articulated exactly why he was taking a knee, but still people took it and wanted to make it something else. So I love that he did it. I hope more players take more social activity, become more socially aware, and want to get more involved in what's going on in the world. And I think there definitely a lot of players are. So I'm glad he did it. I'm all for what he did.
Joe, how do you feel about Mr. Kaepernick's nonviolent protest?
I think that was good because he's basically saying stop killing black people and Black Lives Matter and like everything that like black people do is like good. Well, not the bad thing, but yeah.
So you think that the fact that he did it to spark the conversation was a good thing?
Yes.
Brother Henderson,
Yes, sir.
how do you feel about the fact that Mr. Kaepernick started this thing off and then others followed? He seemed to be the target of the president in this attack.
Yeah. I would say there's a couple things there. One, I don't know if I don't agree with the framing of that anyone else politicized it. If you're taking a knee during the anthem, that's an inherently political act. You know what I mean? So regardless of what his reasoning was, it was already political to begin with. Now, I do agree that people did misinterpret what his original purpose was. He was doing that because he's basically speaking out against police brutality, and people did kind of take it and run with it with something different. Lastly, I'm a freedom of speech guy. Very pro free speech is an old quote. Though I may disagree with what you say, I will defend to the death your right to say it. So even if there's something that I don't agree with, I know that it's a slippery slope to start policing words and actions, because then it becomes we can't even have disagreements anymore. So I think that anybody should be able to do anything that's nonviolent and peaceful protest, or say anything that's nonviolent and peaceful.
Very good, very good. Now, I'm going to stick on the same topic, go a little bit deeper into it. Eventually, Mr. Kaepernick was let go by his team, the San Francisco 49ers, and he was unable to get a job anywhere else as a quarterback in the NFL. Now, some teams tried him out later on, but he never got signed. Although there was a need for good quarterbacks on several teams, obviously. Do you think it was right that no other team hired Mr. Kaepernick? Joe?
No, because the NFL team followed Trump's rules, and they was like following his rules instead of they actually needing him for their teams.
Sam, how do you feel about that?
I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. I think you just have to be look at it from different perspectives, because if they were to hire him with all the controversy going on, it would have been a whole other thing. Let's say the Dallas Cowboys signed him, then that would put the Dallas Cowboys name into something that is clearly being misinterpreted, and they might get especially their worth, the team's worth may go down, people will lose money. And I'm not saying money is important, because obviously the great good, which was what he was trying to represent, is more important. But if we're talking about from other people's perspective, I can see why they didn't hire him, but is it right? No. But when you look at it from the NFL's standpoint, I don't think I don't think it was necessarily bad, but I don't think it was necessarily good.
Jordan, from what I'm saying, a guy, he's on the clock basically, and expressing his personal opinion.
Yeah.
Should he be not able to find a job for that? You know?
In terms of right or wrong, we're speaking about morality. I can't really speak on that. That I'm not really sure of. Did the action make sense that nobody else hired him? Yes, it did make sense. Here's why. This is where, I was just saying, I'm big pro free speech when you're on public property. This is where freedom of speech and private business intersect. You know what I mean? So if I'm a business owner, I'm thinking about my bottom line. First off, I'm in control of whatever, all the actions, whatever anybody's saying in this whole thing, you know? So let's say I run a coffee shop and somebody, while they're on the clock, is protesting about something that they really believe in. I might even agree with what they're protesting in, but they're chanting and shouting, and there might be some customers who agree with them, but there are also some customers who are like, I'm not really rocking with this, all this chanting and stuff, and they might leave. Now that's affecting my bottom line. So the wisest decision for me as a business owner is to not have that go on. Now, if you want to clock out and leave, and even stand right outside the store on a public sidewalk and hold your sign and chant, that's whatever. But once you come to my establishment, or you're in my league, or on my team, or anything like that, if the customer's not rocking with it, then I can't have that go on. So was it right or wrong? I don't know, but did it make sense? Yes. That he couldn't find another team.
Jason, your take on this?
My take is, I think he was blackballed because he didn't conform to the typical standards of American society. You know, we saw this 20 years ago with Craig Hodges, when Craig Hodges wrote a letter to the White House about the inequalities that black people have incurred when the Bulls won the championship. Next year, Craig Hodges is going to find a job. So this is not the first time this happened. And unfortunately, he deserves to have a job. The Bears should have signed him, my team. But he spoke up. And unfortunately, as a black man's issue I kind of have, I feel like when you get to a certain position, you're not allowed to speak up. You have to do, they tell you to jump, you gotta say ha ha. And that's where I feel like that's wrong. I feel like he had it right. As long as he's winning, to me, sports is about winning. And to me, the bottom line, if the team is winning, you're making money. That's the bottom line. And Colin Kaepernick he won. That's the reality. He was a winner. And San Francisco's franchise went up in value when he was winning. So, may affect the bottom line, probably doesn't, because as long as he's performing on the field, to me, as an owner, that's one thing that makes sports so different than other industries, because they care about one thing, that's winning. And if he was a losing quarterback, then I can understand maybe why he didn't find a new job. When you throw 28 touchdowns, only have 6 interceptions, why don't you have a job? I don't care what you've done. That's better than most people out there in the world. So to me, it's totally wrong, and it's all because of how he stood up. I mean, yeah, he did it on company time, but he did it very peacefully, and he still went out and would ball out. I mean, you watch those 16 games that season, after he got done kneeling, he went out and balled. You know, none of his teammates had any issue with him. He went and played ball. So
That's a very interesting point that you bring up, and then you bring in Craig Hodges, and then you want to go back and look at your father and read about Kurt Flood and what he did for baseball. Mm-hmm. Because before him and what he did for baseball, the players weren't making all that kind of money. He changed the game, all sports really, for all players, and it was a black man that stood up there also. So somebody got to buck the system, make change. That's what that's about, actually. And one more thing on the Colin Kaepernick. What else do you think the NFL should do? Well, you mentioned that he was blackballed. And recently the NFL commissioner has actually come out and admitted to Mr. Kaepernick that they got it wrong. They made a settlement with Mr. Kaepernick. So what else do you think that the NFL should do to make things right for Mr. Kaepernick and for the Black Lives Matter movement? Joe?
I think they should give Kaepernick a good job for the NFL, or just rehire him but on a different team. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You think he deserves another shot in the NFL?
Yes.
Go to you, Jason.
you know, to me, it's up to the owners and the general managers to sign the guy. And I just don't see any of those teams wanting to take a chance, unfortunately. Even though he's still one of the best quarterbacks out there. So I think he deserves another shot. I just think, unfortunately, because he already, like you mentioned, settled. And it's clear that NFL is in the wrong through the settlement. They admitted it through the settlement. Because they admitted it, I don't think any team is he's not going to get another shot in the NFL. Even though he deserves it, I just think, point out, he shouldn't go back. He shouldn't even want to do any work for the NFL, in my opinion. I think he should take his show activism to a whole nother level and, keep fighting the good fight and do it away from the NFL.
Henderson, what's your opinion on that?
I think that in terms of Kaepernick, he probably never played ball again in his life because he doesn't have to. I don't know if you saw, he just inked that deal with Disney or something like that. So he's Gucci, he's good. Nike sponsorship, he's not worried about playing football ever. In terms of the NFL's response, I think it was good to acknowledge if they felt that they misstepped, to acknowledge that. I think that moving forward, they could definitely perhaps do some donations or have some sort of time within the game or something like that, where they can show something on television about how they do stand with the movement, and to, I guess, just help with community organizers. I think probably the best thing they can do is maybe maintain their distance, but provide some sort of monetary support, because it's clear that they had missteps with trying to speak on it. So probably just give the money to people who are actually community organizers and are on the ground, and just kind of maintain their distance, kind of leave it where it is. I think probably the best thing.
Mr. Harris, how do you feel about what the NFL should do for Mr. Kaepernick and for the Black Lives Matter movement?
I feel like they've really done enough. I think they should just kind of separate themselves from everything. Because that's just going to bring the NFL down even more. I mean, people are still going to watch it. Don't get me wrong. People are still going to watch football. People love football. But it's that's just, people who don't agree with the Black Lives Matter, not necessarily saying they're racist, but people who don't agree with that whole Black Lives Matter campaign is why a lot of companies don't kind of involve themselves in it. So I feel like the NFL should just stay away from it. And as far as Colin Kaepernick, I think he should be taken to where Shaq took it. And still not directly trying to play, but still speak about football and maybe still speak about politics and things like that. And I think he should also contribute monetarily, like he said, to his community, kind of not how LeBron did, but in a way that LeBron did, not necessarily building a school, but doing something that helps better his personal community or a different community.
I don't know one thing I feel like the NFL should do, they're giving a lot of money to a lot of organizations, but I feel like that can be a little empty at times. They're $1 billion corporation. The NFL is a lot of power. I would love this if they were really serious about black lives, about black people, or black players, which make up 75% of the league. I would like to see them get more involved with political races that actually affect or some type of legislation that actually helps black people in terms of fighting police and changing laws. I know they won't ever do that as wishful thinking, but that's what I would love to see in the NFL.
Sure.
But I totally agree with that, but it's you can't expect the company that these 75% black players are working for to contribute to Black Lives Matter if the whole 75% isn't. Not everybody took that knee. So you can't expect the NFL as a whole to you know what I'm saying, just put themselves out there like that if the black players are not willing to put themselves out there like that.
Do you feel, now I'm going to add a little something in here real quick, add it a little. Do you feel like your answers would be different if the majority owners were African American or black? Jason?
I definitely, if that were the case, then I think Colin Kaepernick would still have a job.
saying. Even if they should agree with it, you're now a liability to me. So now I have to go back to the drawing board regardless of how I look. And that is going to provide a moral conflict. Personally, if I was in that situation, I'm going to switch industries. You know, because I just don't want to be in that moral conflict, so I can still support the movement that I want to without it affecting my bottom line. But yeah, I guess it all depends on where they stand, where their morality begins, and where their focus on their bottom line ends.
Mr. Cole, what do you think if the African Americans owned more of the NFL teams, do you think the answer would be different?
I don't understand.
If the owners of the NFL teams were black men, do you think the answer would be different for Mr. Kaepernick? Do you think your answer would be different?
No, because I think they would do the same thing.
Okay. Okay. And Sam, how do you feel?
I think it would either be, like you said, you'd still have a job, or they do the same thing just because people don't like to, lose. People like to speak up, but people don't like to lose their position in power. So.
The last question I have in that section about Black Lives Matter is, what effect do you feel we can have on the Black Lives Matter movement? Or are you personally looking to, what are you personally looking to help change things for Black lives in America? And we'll start with you.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing that we can do for the Black Lives Matter is the movement is ask ourselves an important question. Do they matter to us all the time? And I say that because when we think about a topic like abortion, which I know is a little shaky, you know, it's real political, but when we look at the black birth rate, it's actually been declining rapidly over the past 20 years, so much so that more black babies are being killed in the womb than are actually being born, you know. And I think the black birth rate into a two-parent household, when I was coming up, me and my brother were born in the mid-90s, was at 33%, so we were part of that 1 in 3, that was a part of two-parent household. Now it's down to 25%, I think 23%. So I think focusing on things like that. And then also, when we look at the music that we play, people, I think in my generation and younger, you know, I'm 24, but people who are younger than me and teenagers, we do play a lot of music that's filled with genocide, it's filled with murder. It's talking about, you know, you shoot the ops. When you think about it, if you black, you in a predominantly black neighborhood, that person's ops are probably black. So black lives don't matter to them, clearly, if they're willing to kill someone who looks like them. But moreover, they must not matter to us, the listener, by proxy, because we keep blasting this music and supporting it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing we can do, and that I do personally, is try to spread out that message, make sure, yes, we do have a problem with police brutality, we do have a problem with us being treated unfairly. I've been a victim of it myself. DWB, dropping my blame. But we also need to focus on that abortion piece. You know? Not to get too deep in history, but the person who started it was a lady by the name of Margaret Sanger, I believe, who was a known eugenicist. And I know people like to talk about access, but they are specifically set up in predominantly black, low-income neighborhoods to affect us. You know, we're dying out here. It almost brings tears to my eyes. So I think that's the best thing we can all do, is just educate ourselves and make sure that all Black lives matter, including the ones that
Mr. Harris, what do you think about that?
What I think we could all do to really forward the Black Lives Matter movement is to see how we can all get involved individually. Because I feel like it's cool to march and stuff, but there are many things going on. Like the COVID, that's still going on. So I feel like we could all march together and stuff like that, like how they did, how Martin Luther King did, do the marching thing. But I feel like it would be more effective individually if you go to one person, you know what I'm saying, kind of talk with them, they go to two more people, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a puzzle. Like if we all work out where we go individually, it'll all come together.
Mr. Cole?
I think we should march even though of the COVID. We should still keep our 6 feet distance, wear masks. If we need them, we wear gloves. We should pray about Black lives and pray about the black people who have died of the white people and all of the cops.
I'm kind of with Sam. I think, you know, we all need to just contribute something. If everyone can just have a heart and just help out in their own little way possible, whether it is maybe taking the time to coach a team or help out in a soup kitchen or just help, especially help someone else out, and supporting one another and showing love to one another, especially another brown person. I think that's just what we all need to do. You know, just try to get involved some way, somehow. There's a lot of people struggling in a lot of different ways because of COVID, because of joblessness, because of healthcare. I mean, it's rough out here, and we just have to be mindful of that and just help people out, especially people who look like us in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways you can help someone, whether it's bringing someone groceries or giving someone a ride. You know, we just need to continue to have the biggest heart you can for your fellow man, especially for your fellow brown person.
Right, the traditional ways, like you mentioned, there's always new ways.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, not everyone can reach thousands of people through social media and have that type of effect like a celebrity can, but you can help someone, you know, get groceries or help someone find a job or be a mentor to someone who may not have a mentor. Or just one thing I wish we did more often, and I'm involved in my son's PTA, my son's school's PTA, and the whole District 65 PTA. I just wish I saw more Black males involved as well. You know, the kids need to see, Joe needs to see Black men in positions of power that help with the schools. You know, I think that's important, especially for our young Black men. See that we're involved, that we care about each other. So.
Okay, now we're going to switch it and go, not to last and least, but to the pinnacle of our discussion, which is we're going to talk about Jesus. So, I want to know if there's a biblical character that you identify with, or that you call your favorite, and why. I'll start with you on that, Sam.
Biblical character I identify myself. You know, I choose to identify with a person in the Bible, but aspire to be like people in the Bible, of course. I don't like to choose to kind of like stick myself to a person, because like I'd rather try to stick myself to everyone and be the best of each person. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't feel like me sticking myself to one individual person in the Bible would be like as effective for me personally on my character. I feel like, you know how like we can all learn something. That's like let's say let's say Mr. Henderson was just my mentor, when I could have everyone here be my mentor. You know what I'm saying? Learn from everybody. So that's just how I feel.
Okay. Jason, how do you feel about that?
There's not one necessarily biblical character that I think I like or I kind of go to. But I will say that Job, his story perseverance, you know, I look at that a lot because he went through a lot. He lost pretty much everything, but then he persevered and got it back. And that's a story that I think a lot of people can relate to. I think it's very important because everybody goes through something. The devil can get at all of us, and this is how we get through it. And he was able to get through it, and he persevered. So that's a story I wouldn't say I necessarily relate to. It's just something that resurrects me because it's just it just tells me to keep fighting.
Joel, do you have a person in the Bible that you admire to the point that you identify with? Or?
Well, I like, but I don't identify, but I like Jesus. And I like him because he's smart, confident, brave, loving, caring, thankful, faithful, and etc.
Okay. to be your favorite character in the whole?
Yes.
Okay. Jordan?
I would say personally, I really identify with the parable of the prodigal son. And although our stories aren't exactly the same, I think there are a lot of parallels. Just to remind everyone, he was the younger son who approached his father for his inheritance. He wanted his inheritance, he wanted to run off and explore the world. And through his travels, he actually messed up and he spent all of his money, and he had to come back and beg his father for forgiveness, you know. And so, even though I didn't come to my father and ask for any riches, there was a point in my life, I would say about 5 years ago, where I was just kind of out here. I was going nowhere fast. You know, I wasn't at home at the time. I wasn't in the church at the time, and there was just a lot of soul searching that I had to do. And what I did not realize at the time was I was bringing pain to people in my family by my absence, by my sudden disappearance. And so I did effectively have to come back around and re-instill in myself some humility and ask for forgiveness from my family members. And so I think just that story of redemption, you know, and come back around and realize that you never turn your back on your family, and you can always come back to your family. So that's really the story that speaks to me most.
Good. Going further into the scriptures, at some point in your life, all of you here have accepted Christ. So as someone who is in Christ, how do you distinguish yourself or differentiate yourself to try to be different from the other people in the world? Joe?
Like, I don't steal, I don't commit any crimes, I don't harm people, I read my Bible, go to church, go to school, help people, help my family.
Okay. Try to live that exemplary life, huh? Okay. Sam?
I feel like what Jordan said, the whole soul searching thing. Before, like, I know, like, we've all accepted Christ, but like before, like finding Him kind of allows you to find yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of helps you like realize who you are. So like, in order for me personally to not be like everyone else, try to, you know, not isolate myself, but kind of separate myself from everything that's like going on and kind of just like sit on everything, like revise it, and kind of like use that to better myself. So this is how I try to be different from everything.
So physically separate yourself?
Physically, mentally, like not really, because I know like, you know, my mom, I don't know about like everybody else, but my mom was told me like you're not supposed to like watch the news and stuff before you go to sleep. Stuff like sits in your psyche. Like it's not good for your mind for you to be always involved in worldly activities. You kind of gotta separate yourself, like open your inner self. Like you gotta kind of, you know what I'm saying, like not just physically remove yourself from people who aren't good for you, but mentally get away from the world.
I would say, sort of piggybacking off the tail end of Sam's statement, being in this world but not of it, you know, understanding certain maybe pop cultural references or understanding what's going on and keeping with the times, but understanding that we are here and we are called to a higher purpose. After that, I would say really focusing on what Jesus talks about in the Bible, which is being born twice, you know, being born of water, meaning being born from your mother's water, but also being born of spirit. So that focus on spiritual rebirth, understanding that we do have to look inside, that we are born imperfect because we are human, and that we do have a spiritual journey to go on, and that we have certain things to understand, whether it be breaking generational curses or uplifting others within our family, which, you know, might be one and the same in certain circumstances. And then lastly, really understanding that even though we're in these times where, you know, with these different injustices we talked about having to deal with Black Lives Matter, and we also talked about the COVID-19 situation, all these things that are in the natural, we can't forget about the supernatural. We cannot forget that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. There is a war going on day by day. It's a war for the soul of this nation, a war for the soul of this world. And so we have to ask ourselves, do we see it? We have to tap in and understand that even though we have all these things within the natural, still understanding what's going on outside of us.
Just to piggyback off of what Sam and Jordan said, just want to be in your own world. I mean, I feel like what I like to do is just, you know, one thing I love about my commute to work, I'm definitely in my own zone. I maybe listen to whatever music I'm listening to, but I have my own routine. I stick to my own thing. You know, I'm not trying to be rude to anybody while I'm going to work or anything like that, but I just try to live my own journey through the day and be in my own peace while I'm outside of my family and my home, and living right while I'm outside of my family and home, while I'm at, because usually I'm at work when I'm outside of my family and home, and just trying to live right and be peaceful with everyone else, and not let the rest of what's going on in the world take over your world, because it can do that. As you mentioned, you know, you don't want to watch the news before you go to bed. You don't want, I mean, a lot of things are going on in the world, but you don't want to have that take control of your inner world. As you know, you want to, your inner world should be to a higher power. So I think that's one thing that I try to do, is just try to do my own thing and not be bothered by other things. Just do what I'm supposed to do at work, and then at home I just try to be peaceful, live a peaceful, you know, God-fearing life with the family, and hopefully, you know, I want other people to kind of have similar lives where everyone's different, but everyone, you know, hopefully understands that there is a higher power, but I know not everyone.
That's right. And that's going to take the next question. Exactly. Not everyone believes or has that same experience that we have. So, with that being known, we know from the scriptures that one day Jesus is coming back, right? He's going to come back and claim his followers. So what I don't know from you all is, when Jesus comes back, how is he going to be able to distinguish you as one of his followers? How is he going to be able to separate you from anybody else on the street? What are you doing different to stand out as a follower of Jesus? And it's going to be obvious to him that you're one of his. Okay? Sorry, you on that short.
I think the main language that will be received by Jesus is the language of intention. You know, what do you intend on doing? What's your motivation? I'm sure we might be familiar with somebody saying you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons. You know, so it's making sure we're not just, even though we should, you know, be amongst believers and be amongst people where we can speak in a spiritual sense, we also have to remember that we have to go outside of our comfort zone. We have to go to people who might not be on the same way. If all we're doing is talking to people who already agree with us, we just wasting our breath. You know, that's an echo chamber. That's just groupthink. We have to step outside of that. And you know, if I see somebody on the street or see somebody who I know personally, but might be lost, you know, might feel like they just going nowhere fast, might not feel like there is even a God at all. You know, you have to reach out to them and not hit them over the head with a Bible, but say, hey, this is what has blessed me in my life. You know, this is what I've seen from a difference, even within myself, from maybe being doubtful in myself or in the Most High, to making that transition and seeing how it's affected me, how I started getting blessed more and more when I subscribed to that and realized that I did have a higher calling. You know, so I think that would be the main difference. Just what do you intend on doing things for the right reasons, and reaching out to people who might not be on the same page.
That's very, very good, very understandable. You need one?
I guess the main thing I would want to do to let Jesus know that I'm one of his followers is my intention is to just show unconditional love to everyone. as I love myself and my family. And I just want to show him that how much love is in my heart. Because I know I'm not a perfect person, and hopefully, I know he forgives you. So I want him to know that to forgive me for all of the sins that I've committed, and hopefully I know he knows that, and just continue to love and be a better person as I get older and move forward with my life. And just the main thing, I guess.
All right, so, Joel, how is Jesus going to know you from everyone else when he comes back to get you?
Because I go to church, read the Bible, all of that stuff. I try to do my best. Yeah, try to do my best. Read my Bible, go to church, help people, help the ladies, help my family, send out cards, give money, donate money, and all that.
Okay, so a lot of what Jordan said, the intentions of what your hearts is telling you to do in your actions. Sam?
I'm a very big, soul, I had to, soul search to find out who I was. I'm very, big on soul searching, so, I feel like being spiritually, not only biblically enlightened, but spiritually enlightened is also, very, important. And if you allow yourself to, like he said, being around people who agree with you is not helping anyone who's not. So I feel like if you're spiritually enlightened and you know who you are and you know who he is, then that means, your parents have always told you, oh, don't hang around them. They might rub off on you. They're bad influences. But I feel like if you're really the Christian spiritual guru that you portray yourself to be and are around, when you're around people who agree with you, you can be that same person when you're not around those people. And when you get around a circle of people who aren't necessarily in tune spiritually and biblically the way you are, you'll rub off on them, not vice versa. So I feel like that's all of our main mission, not just mine personally. I feel like the goal of humanity is to just help each other find out who we are.
So kind of, like you're saying, in your social settings, like Maya Angelou said, when somebody shows you who they are, that's who they are, right? So you recognize the person for who they are. So we could go on and on, but that's the extent of our panel questions for today. We've taken our time, the time that was allotted to us to have this discussion. I really appreciate you young men giving your insight and bringing us up to date on current events, what we see here. We thank our pastor for allowing us to have this round circle, this discussion. We thank Brother Jimmy, leader of NetCasters, for his vision in putting this thing out here, and the whole crew, everybody who put this together, Sister Kathy, Brother Mike, my fellow moderator. We really appreciate you young men. We're going to have a lot of people going to have their eye on you now, seeing as you put this out here as who you are, and hopefully we'll get a lot of people engaged in watching what we're talking about here, and we can take this on to something greater later. Amen?
Amen. And so we once again, echoing what Brother Ricky said, we thank you folks. We know you fellas had to take out of your time to do this. And we thank you in virtual land for joining us. We appreciate that you did join us. And we ask that you join us tomorrow night for our service. The second part of our program of the Empowerment Weekend. And so we look forward to having you join us tomorrow night, where our messenger will be Pastor Crutcher from New Hope CME Church. So until then, we look forward to seeing you, well, virtually that is, and we say God bless you and take care.
That happened to me my freshman year in college. So what happened was it was at the end of the semester. I needed to choose classes for the next semester. And I went to my advisor, naturally. So he looked over my grades, and I did pretty well. I had a 4.5 And I particularly had to take a macroeconomics class, something that was definitely new to me. So I ended up with a B in that class. And he looked at the grade in that class, and he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, I'm surprised that you got a B." I was like, "Huh." I took great offense to that because I had to work really hard just to get that B. That was one of the hardest classes I'd taken. I had never taken a class like that in high school, and so I was really proud of myself. That just goes to show you, he just thought I was some, I guess some goofy, student athlete or something like that, and I wasn't capable of doing that. But I say this, that I think that we do have some kind of, educational stigma, against us. And I think, a lot of us think that, the path to financial freedom is only through entertainment / sports. I'm talking about, rappers, singers, this, that, I know how talented we are, definitely. But we're also more than that as well. I think if we choose to, turn the TV off and value our education and our intellect, we can make a lot of things happen. A lot of us, value things and materials, kind of fall in that materialism trap over education and intellect. But I'll tell you something that I learned way too later in life. It's not what's on you, but it's what's in you. You feed your mind with the right things and you'll present yourself a lot differently to the world and the people around you. I'm an advocate of getting your passport, getting out there, seeing the world, having experiences. And you will see that you are blessed, especially, living in this great country of ours. Great in certain aspects, of course. I'll end with this. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's actually the one sitting above me on the wall. It's by Marcus Garvey. He said, "If we as a people realize the greatness from which we came, we would less likely to disrespect ourselves." I think it's powerful. Be blessed. Blessed.